Good afternoon and welcome to our special memorial service honoring all the past Enmanji Buddhist Temple BWA members, Eshinni Sama, who was the wife of Shinran Shonin, and their youngest and sixth child, Kakushinni Sama, Lady Takeko Kujo, and Lady Yoshiko Ohtani. As you may know, in 1978, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, the world's Buddhist Women's Association passed a resolution to conduct annual services in honor of Eshinni Sama. And in 2002, we passed another resolution to honor Kakushinni Sama. Today, we hold services to honor these ladies and who played a very important roles in the organization of the BWA and Honganji. And if we listen to the lyrics from Dr. Kent's song, Shinran's Family, we will listen to some of the many highlights of leadership that these impressive ladies played in the organization of the BWA and the Honganji. Our special service now also honors Lady Takeko Kujo for laying the foundation of the Buddhist Women's Association and Lady Yoshiko Ohtani. Hopefully, all of the accomplishments and dedication of all these ladies will never be forgotten, but be remembered and carried on for many, many more years. This afternoon's message, Dharma message, will be presented by Reverend Melissa Opel of the Buddhist Church of San Francisco. And because Reverend Opel attended our Bay District BWA conference in May, I think this is her second visit to our very special temple. Reverend Opel was born and raised in Washington State and received a BA in interdisciplinary studies and later completed a MFA in creative writing. Reverend Opel received her Tokudo ordination in 2019 and her Kyoshi certification in 2022 and graduated from the Institute of Buddhist Studies in the spring of 2024. And here she is in San Francisco today. Welcome, Sensei, to the Bay Area, and we will very shortly hear her Dharma's message. Please put your hands together in Gasho and reflect on this very short message by Dogen. Quote, "To learn the Buddha way is to learn about oneself. To learn about oneself is to forget oneself. To forget oneself is to be confirmed by all dharmas." Unquote. Please stand for the opening gatha, Shinran's family, on page 128 in the white book. And remain standing for the threefold refuge on page 10 in the purple book.
Where it's the handout.
We had a last minute change. It will be Shinran's family.
Okay.
Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu.
The threefold refuge on page 10. Difficult is it to receive a human form. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the Dharma of the Buddha. Now we hear it. If we do not cross over to the truth in the present life, in what life shall we cross over? Let us with sincerity and true reverence take refuge in the three treasures of the truth.
I take refuge in the Buddha. May we, together with all sentient beings, awaken to the great way of enlightenment and to the unsurpassed intent of Amida Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we, together with all sentient beings, enter the storehouse of the Dharma, becoming like the wisdom ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we, together with all sentient beings, become units in true accord, in harmony with all things.
The purest, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rare to encounter, even in many hundreds and thousands of kalpas. Now we are privileged to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of the Tathagata's teaching.
Namandats, 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 namandats.
Today we are grateful to have Reverend Melissa Opel lead our sutra chanting, starting with Sambujo on page 24 in the Purple Book and Jusege on page 93 in the Purple Book.
Jesus. gather this 20th day of October to honor all the women who have come before us in our Jodo Shinshu faith, leading us to the Pure Land through their wisdom, their compassion, and their guidance. Namandas, 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 namandas. Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandaps, 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 namandaps.
This afternoon, we are very thankful and appreciative to have Reverend Melissa Opel of the Buddhist Church of San Francisco to share her Dharma message. Sensei.
Good afternoon. I think that's what time it is. Please join me in Gasho. Such is the benevolence of Amida's great compassion that we must strive to return it even to the breaking of our bodies. Such is the benevolence of the masters and true teachers that we must endeavor to repay it even to our bones becoming dust. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandaps, namandaps, namandaps. Well, this afternoon's Gosandai, or opening message, comes to us from the Shoujo Matsu Wasan, or Hymns of the Dharma Ages. Of course, many of this recognize the poem in the form of Ondakusan, whose lyrics state, "The debt of gratitude I owe to Amida's great compassion, I will proclaim until my life disintegrates into dust. The debt of gratitude I owe to the Dharma teachers." Oh, I just lost it. I'm so sorry. Let's try that quote again. "The debt of gratitude I owe to Amida's great compassion, I will proclaim until my life disintegrates into dust. The debt of gratitude I owe to my Dharma teachers, I will express until my bodily form is finally shattered." So whether in poem or in song, these are quite powerful words. To have such deep gratitude for something that one would endeavor to give back to it to the point of one's body breaking or bones becoming dust. Yet these are the words Shinran Shonin writes. His deep, unyielding thankfulness for the Nembutsu. And although the Shogo Matsuwa-san was written when he was 85 years old, this is the home that Kakushinni was born into. A home of deep gratitude for the Nembutsu teachings, a deep reliance on the compassion of Amida Buddha, and a home that many would benefit from. Born in 1224, Kakushinni, which is her Buddhist name, was the last of Shinran's children to be born. He was 52 years old when Eshinni was born, when Kakushinni was born, and his wife, Eshinni, was 43. So I myself just recently turned 45. I don't mind ratting myself out on my age. And I cannot wrap my head around having a child that young in the home. Just running around, doing its thing. Like, I'm tired at 45. I don't know what Eshinni was doing at 43, but I'm sure she was tired too. And thinking that, too, the sort of possibilities given the age expectancy as well at that time, to be having a child at 43. I mean, you were lucky to be alive at 43, much less having a child. The Kakushinni was born in the same year. There's something very interesting. She was born in the same year that Shinran began compiling the Kyogyo Shinsho, his major doctrinal work, which would give birth to Jodo Shinshu and set into motion the trajectory of countless lives. According to Asaku Fujikawa's book, Daughter of Shinran, he would not have been able to compose such a magnum opus from memory, but there was a place not that far in Yakushuji, just about 2.5 miles from where he and his family were residing, that had many sutras from which he could find what he needed. So he made many trips, and finally that study led him to begin writing. So as Claire let you know, I have a master's in creative writing, and I studied shorts. So shorts are like 1,500 words or less to tell a story. Sorry, this Dharma talk exceeds that. You didn't get the benefit of the short. You get like the long short. But I remember and recall, I can easily recall what it feels like to sit down and write. There's this anticipation of what your words will turn into. And so now as I am working still on my thesis, I actually didn't graduate, by the way. It's okay though. It's fine. They're still letting me work. And so, as I'm working on this thesis, if you were to look at my desk at home, you would see it is super, super messy. It's piled high with books on all sorts of subjects, as well as books I've neglected to put away from Dharma talks and various writing projects. And often writers will speak of their characters coming to life on the page, the birth of an idea or a story. There's even a type of sadness that occurs when you have completed a story and released it into the world that is likened to when a child leaves home. A type of empty nest feeling, as if something is missing. This arising of Kakushinni's life, the expectation of her birth, the welcoming her into the world, and the new beginnings and excitement of her life, that anticipation of who she might become, seems so auspiciously interwoven into Shinran's writing of the Kyogyo Shinsho, that it is difficult to turn away from the parallels of what that writing meant and what she would come to mean to us now, more than 800 years later. And we can imagine her slowly coming to understand her surroundings and be aware of her father laboring over his writings. According to Fujikawa, another interesting event unfolded in 1224, and that was the Nembutsu was banned once again. Although Shinran had begun compiling the necessary sutras prior to the reinstated ban, I wonder if this caused him to stay up at night, working all the more diligently to clarify the teachings of his late teacher, Honen, to spur him on even more to ensure others heard the message of the embrace of Amida Buddha, the power of the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Eventually, Shinran and Eshinni would gather the family some 10 years later and return to Kyoto. For Shinran, this meant returning to the center of dispute and anti-Nembutsu sentiment. Having been exiled many years before, I'm sure the memories of his teachers and the friends who were executed resurfaced as they made their long journey. And how could it not? The last time he had been in Kyoto, it did not end well. And I wonder if the young Kakushinni picked up on her father's body language, or if he spoke to them of what he experienced in the city before being banished. Had he yet found thankfulness in this event, since it ultimately brought him to Eshinni and gave him his children, to become Gotoku, the stubble-headed foolish one, who was neither monk nor lay. And eventually Kakushinni would marry her first husband, and at the age of 20 give birth to her first son, Kakue. 7 years later, her husband would pass, and the picture of her life gets a little murkier at this point. But we do know she was able to care for her father when he fell ill. Despite the sadness of losing a husband, the death allowed for her to return to her father and be by his side as his health declined. The gift of love. Caretaking for another human being is difficult, but it is also incredibly intimate. When I was in college, my maternal grandfather was diagnosed with cancer. He also struggled with heart disease. And now, my grandparents had an interesting relationship. They were not the kindest to each other and often yelled and said not so nice things. From the time that I could remember, they slept alone. He in the main bedroom, my grandmother on the couch. And she preferred the couch, she told me, even though there were 3 empty bedrooms that my mother, aunt, and uncle had once occupied. And she did not sleep in a bed until after he passed away. But even then, she did not sleep in the main bedroom. I often thought that they did not love each other, but there would be glimpses of care and affection. He worked graveyard, so she would cook him dinner while simultaneously cooking my brother and I breakfast before sending us off to school. My grandparents helped raise my brother and I because my mother was a single parent. When my grandfather became ill, he was dependent on my grandmother to change a fairly extensive dressing on his leg from a surgery that had been done. And as I was visiting, then junior in college, my grandmother needed to care for it while I was there. And as she changed the dressing, I watched her care for him in the same way that she had cared for me when I would come home with a skinned knee, or when she had to change a dressing on my face after a particularly bad bicycle accident that scraped up the entire side of my face. It was gentle and loving, slow movements to try and mitigate the pain that I'm sure he was feeling. And it was one of the few times I saw them in a room together where they did not yell. I saw what their marriage must have been like before the pressures of bills and children came down on them. And I can't help but project this onto Kakushinni, how she must have loved her father, to put her life on hold and to care for him, to worry over him, and to watch him slowly move towards the Pure Land into the embrace of Nirvana. Shinran Shonin entered the land of peace and bliss on January 16, 1263, at the age of 90. In those times, people believed that strange and miraculous events would occur when an important religious person died. And when this did not happen, Kakushinni wrote a letter to her mother, stating concern that her father's death was uneventful, and she was worried. But Eshinni wrote back and said, "There is no doubt that your father was born in the Pure Land, and there is no need for me to reiterate this." Eshinni firmly believed Shinran Shonin's birth in the Pure Land was assured because of his complete reliance on Amida's vow. They were a family of devout followers, and the conviction they felt superseded worry and doubt. Eshinni had thought so highly of her husband, and he of her, that they spoke of seeing each other in the Pure Land again. So after his death, Kakushinni wanted to keep her father's teaching alive and perpetuated it for his followers, to give back to him, his disciples, and to her own family. And so she built a temple enshrining an image of Shinran, and as a result, the Nembutsu teaching began to flourish further. About 50 years later, this mausoleum became an official temple and was named the Honganji. This gift she also gave set up the caretaker system, and I'll argue that she's really our first Gamoncho, but don't tell, oh, you're recording this, shoot, don't tell Honganji I said that. And as we know now, this laid the groundwork that we too might know the Nembutsu path, the most important aspect of all this passing it on. The Honganji Temple has, of course, developed into the Jodo Shinshu school and remains one of the largest and most powerful, Buddhist schools in Japan. And it was Kakushinni's foresight and deep appreciation towards the Nembutsu teaching that saved Shinran's work and established the foundation of Jodo Shinshu, something he never would have done for himself. Because for Shinran, it was not himself he wanted people to remember. He wanted all things to bring about a deeper understanding and appreciation of the Nembutsu. But what I think Kakushinni understood was her father was the embodiment of deep faith. And it is why he wrote, "Such is the benevolence of Amida's great compassion, that we must strive to return to it, even to the breaking of our bodies. Such is the benevolence of the masters and true teachers, that we must endeavor to repay it, even to our bones becoming dust." This is the way in which Shinran lived, and this is what he spent his life imploring others to do, to quickly take refuge. This poem that he wrote finds its roots in the writing of Shantao, one of our 7 teachers or masters, in which he writes, "For kalpas upon kalpas stacked high and linked together, you should crush your bodies and break your bones to return in gratitude the Buddha's compassion." And the gratitude we feel for the Nembutsu is something we slowly come to understand. Gratitude for the Nembutsu is a process, and one that we must grow and experience. It is working because it works dynamically in our life. It grows as we grow. So when we are a baby and we are given a gift, someone brings it to us. And as babies, maybe we slap at it, or more than likely put it in our mouth and kind of chew on it. We need help to open and recognize that it's a gift. There wasn't much done on our part, it just kind of appears. We just put our hands up. And as we get older and we receive gifts, we are taught to say thank you, to be patient to open the gift, to not show disappointment if we don't get what we like. It's a process. And eventually, hopefully, there comes a time when we are given a gift and we come to understand the sacrifices someone made in order for us to have that gift. The thoughtfulness, the care, the sacrifice. When this occurs, we genuinely say thank you to the person who gave us the gift, because there's a deep understanding that arises. And this is how we awaken to the vow of Amida Buddha, the calling voice, the teachings. It's a gift that's always there. We just have to become aware of it. For Shinran, that gratitude rose to the point in which he was willing to sacrifice his life to share the teachings. And make no mistake about it, he understood it was a sacrifice. Like, don't forget, he just watched his friends get hung and then exiled, and then yet he still chose to share the teachings. And for Kakushinni, she too was taught to sacrifice her life, to share the teachings, so that we may also encounter the calling voice of Amida Buddha and be released from the cycle of birth and death, and to find peace from our suffering, if even in small ways, now in this life. This sacrifice to the Nembutsu, this deep devotion, encouraged others to dedicate their lives in similar fashion. If we look at Lady Taiko Kujo, she did just that. Her life of refuge in the teachings led her to do great and amazing things, benefiting countless sentient beings, and furthered the path for other women, as well as care and compassion for those who suffered most deeply. She writes, "Those who advance along the way are not necessarily wealthy. Even in the midst of poverty, one can live according to the good teaching. Aren't people who complain about their unhappiness while pursuing the teaching actually just looking for happiness while they pretend to seek the teaching? Indeed, when people are absolutely pierced to the marrow by poverty, the true way opens up and they proceed in the light of the teaching, are sure to triumph over whatever misfortune they might encounter. Those who make true progress on the way are by far the strongest of individuals." When we think about the great devotion of Shinran, Eshinni, Kakushinni, and Lady Kujo, and although I'm not talking about Lady Ohtani today, we can include her as well. And this idea of giving back to the crushing of our bones, we may start to interpret that as needing to do big, sweeping gestures. Although Shinran spent much of his life doing this, he also did this in ways which were true to him. His prolific amount of writings tell us not only that he enjoyed studying the Nembutsu and living a devotional life, but he was gifted at writing and at simply sharing the teachings with others through gatherings and letter writing. Eshinni was a gifted businesswoman, and she supported her husband both financially and emotionally. She also had a great understanding of the teachings herself, and she stands squarely on her own 2 feet and contributed to the teachings and its spread. Becca, my wife, often takes notes for me. She drove me here today because I have a phobia of bridges. And she will take notes for me during workshops. She'll take notes for me for Dharma talk. We'll see what she says on the ride home. She'll let me know what made sense, what didn't, where I was a little long-winded. And she has her own understanding of the teachings, and she's made her own sacrifices. Think of the sacrifices a spouse must make in order for their spouse to leave a career in finance to become a resident minister. In this way, I have no troubles understanding what a partner Eshinni was to Shinran, and how he was deeply supported by her and able to do the great things he did because of her support. And Kakushinni, too, took on the insight and giftedness of her parents and returned those to us. And of course, Lady Kujo took advantage of her position and life and made advancements for women by starting a BWA, opening a school for girls, which would become the Kyoto Women's University, and of course the aid she gave to support the free clinic in Tokyo, which would become the Osoka Hospital. Her essays and poetry, too, have helped to spread the Nembutsu teachings. When we lean into our talents and combine that with the deep gratitude we have for having encountered the call of Amida Buddha, big and amazing things can happen. In our temples and surrounding temples, we are constantly encountering the gifts people have been given because they recognized what they have received. In one of Eshinni's letters, she quotes Shinran and says, "The repayment of the Buddha's blessing is to believe the teaching for oneself and then to teach others to believe. Jishin kyo min shin. This is the most difficult of all difficulties." And I believe this is why he compares it as well to the breaking of our bodies and our bones becoming dust. When we consider how we awaken slowly, the evidence of the teachings will be on us and in our hearts and in our minds. Shinran Shonin and Eshinni lived their life and taught from the heart of someone who knew a life before encountering the Nembutsu, the deep embrace of Amida Buddha. They both knew life absent of such a gift. But Kakushinni and Lady Kujo teach us deeply what it means to be born into such a gift, to have always known that they were embraced in all their foolishness, in all the mistakes, and in all the joys. As we honor the women of Jodo Shinshu, we honor both of these paths, recognizing that no matter how we encounter, that we hope to find the same deep devotion that will keep the Nembutsu on our lips and in our hearts, and will leave it for generations to come. Please join me in Gassho. Such is the benevolence of Amida's great compassion that we must strive to return it even to the breaking of our bodies. Such is the benevolence of the masters and true teachers that we must endeavor to repay it, even to our bones becoming dust. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namandats, Namandats, Namandats.
Thank you, Sensei, for your special message and for taking the time to honor our past BWA members, Eshinni-sama, Kakushinni-sama, Lady Kujo, and Lady Ohtani. I learned something today, yay, which is very unusual for me, but thank you. Please stand for the closing gatha, Seiya, on page 226 in the purple book, and remain standing for the closing meditation.
Today's closing meditative reading is from Reverend Suji's The Heart of the Buddha Dharma. He writes, "Listen. Listen to the voice of the Dharma. Listen to the birds singing in the morning, the wind sighing in the boughs overhead, and the roar of the waves on the beach. Listen to the rain on the roof and the snow falling in the fields. The Dharma speaks to us through the sounds of the world, forcefully and eloquently and beautifully. It speaks of the unending change around us, the immutable truth of interdependence, and the peace in nature. Do we have ears to hear and listen? Listen to the Nembutsu in the Hondo. Listen to the noble silence of the Buddha." Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Namanda.
Before I ask if anyone has an announcement, I have a very sad one. On Monday, October 14th, one of our very dedicated and helpful BWA board members, Twinkle Matoba Yagi, has gone to the Pure Land. Twinkle was not only a very active BWA board member, she was a dear and cheerful friend to many, especially to me, as we were not only high school classmates, but Sunday school students, YBA, BWA, and Temple members for all these years. I should say off and on for all these years. Believe it or not, Enmanji had a YBA girls basketball team that won a Western YBA championship. Unbelievable, as we were the underdogs. But we also proved that may we be small, but when we work as a team, anything may happen. And that was Twinkle. Because of Twinkle's request, there will be a private family service. Our most sincere and deepest sympathy to Daryl and his family. And does anyone else have any announcements? Bigger and better ones?
The Buddhist Temple of Marin is having a Buddhism and Culture series, and the second one of their series is a lecture by Reverend Kiyonobu Kuwahara, which will take place next Sunday after their regular Sunday service. And he will be talking on Buddhism and language, the influence of Buddhist teachings on Japanese language. That will take place next Sunday. We don't have a in-person service next Sunday, so if anyone is interested or able to go, that I believe the Buddhist Temple of Marin would be appreciative. Also, in thinking of Twinkle Yagi, some of you may not remember, but both Twinkle and her sister, Vicky, were Dharma school teachers at one point, and that was when we had a very, very large Dharma school called Sunday School, and we occupied every single available classroom. So her dedication to helping out Enmanji goes back very many, many years, and we will certainly miss her.
Are there any other announcements? We would like to thank Helen Kobayashi and Lauren and Linda Miyazaki for heading the October Toban team for the beautiful flowers and Nosanai. And I'm not quite sure. I think George set up the Onaiji. Thank you. And also reading the Kansho. And for Dr. Kent Matsuda for providing the music. And I hope everybody listened to Shinran's family and heard about Kakushinni and Eshinni. The October Toban invites everyone to the social hall to share and enjoy a special piece of cake donated by BWA. in remembering our past BWA members, Eshinni-sama, Kakushinni-sama, Lady Takeko Kujo, and Lady Yoshiko Ohtani. And I'd like to thank Sensei Opel for sharing your time and knowledge in honoring our past BWA members, Eshinni-sama, Kakushinni-sama, Lady Takeko Kujo, and Lady Yoshiko Ohtani. We enjoyed having you come to Enmanji, and especially very appreciative of your Dharma message. And as Reverend Opel said, her wife is here, and I'd like to introduce her, Becca Opel. Thank you for driving. And thank you everyone for attending today's special service. And for those who have not and wish to Oshoko, please come forward before leaving the Hongo. Thank you.